I created so many hurdles when truthfully, that really was just me being super insecure. I felt if it wasn't professional, if it wasn't dialed in, that people wouldn't respect me. I wasn't very in tune with myself when I started this podcast. I think ambition to me was like 7 figures and like high cash months and like all this, like, if I could be really candid, like surface level shit. A surprise for me was also realizing how freeing it is to just be fucking real. I am seeing people noticing that like I deserve a break. I deserve grace. I deserve support. Do you see her? Like, do you see how great she is? Do you see what she's possible of? I think now ambition to me is about the ability for us as women to be in the relentless pursuit of our greatness. One of the hardest decisions that we can do as women and as entrepreneurs is to take a step in something when we don't have the pieces. Ambitious or ambition is not something you do, it's something you are. It's something that your identity is. It's in your being. Hello and welcome back to the Ambitious Podcast. I cannot believe I'm going to say this, but we have hit 100 episodes of the Ambitious Podcast. And reflecting on that, number one, that's crazy. Time flies when you're having fun. But I also feel like in celebration of today's episode, I want to do something that is not just a typical, structure that we always do, not a typical guest episode. Today, we're going to be riding solo, you and I. We're going to be discussing really the reflection that I have had on a professional level, personal level, insights of guests, and everything in between when it comes to this podcast. Because this podcast originally was, full transparency, a strategy move for the business. But the beautiful thing about it has been that it has allowed me to grow in so many other areas. And I've seen a lot of transformation and truthfully, so many things even outside of anything business and strategy wise. So today for the episode, I'm going to be going through a series of questions that are, partially reflection, partially just things that even people have asked me in reference to the podcast. And I want to be fully transparent. I have no idea what these questions are. I literally had them in a doc that I have not viewed until this very moment. So these are going to be fully unfiltered and fully off the cuff. So right now, looking at it, they are broken into a couple different core categories. So one is the origin of the podcast and the evolution of it. We're also going to be talking about some mindset aspects and the changes I've seen, some realities of what I have witnessed and what I've experienced being behind the microphone, the insane, incredible things that I've seen in the bucket of our community here with the Ambitious Podcast, and the amazing people I've been able to connect with. And then also just some lessons, as well as, which I think is the fun part, what is the future of the Ambitious Podcast and the Ambitious community? So with all that being said, let's get into the episode. Okay, so let's start with the first category, which is really the origin. What made me start the Ambitious Podcast? Well, truthfully, if I'm going to be really candid, I feel like I kept getting feedback from people that they didn't feel like my Instagram was a fair representation of who I was. And like valid. That's so valid because I'll be honest. I don't love making content. Like I know that I should for the job that I have. I always had hopes that that would change in me, but I just don't love it. I don't love filming. I don't love making content that's short little pieces of content. And the Ambitious Podcast was partially, number one, a way for me to film like a long video where I could kind of just rant and not feel like I had to speak in 60-second increments. And for me, that style was very helpful because then I could chop it into little pieces that were bite-sized and valuable. But that for me was the content strategy side. The other side that I think was my main objective. Sorry, if you're watching this, I am picking. For anybody who has big dogs, I have 2 big dogs and I find pieces of dog hair like on my lip gloss or like in my own hair on my face. It's brutal. But I digress. Strategy bucket number 1 was long form chopped into short form. That was something that I really wanted because I didn't like creating short form content. But the other part of it was that I had so many comments from people who would say once they met me in person or once they spent some time with me, even sometimes in a coaching setting, that they'd be like, oh man, like you're nothing like your Instagram. Like you're just like more down to earth or you're more heart-centered or you're more like approachable, whatever it might be. And there was this kind of description of like a softness when someone got to spend time with me that I feel like didn't translate to social media. And so I did ask myself, I was like, how do I allow people to feel like they know me, not just what I do for people? And I found like that, again, was really hard to create that depth and that connection in a 30 to 60-second video. And I know that you can do it. It's just not the natural style of how I would like to do it. And so I think there was an aspect of content creation for sure, but there was also like, I just felt really misunderstood. And because I like to mass create content and like batch content, I was using photo shoot photos and I was using like media from 2, 3 weeks earlier. And so nothing felt really, yeah, like connected to me as a person in a deep way. And so I thought, how do I make this make sense from a content perspective for me? But then how do I make sure that like I really truly have a space to authentically be myself? And this became that place for me. And so I would say the first couple episodes of Ambitious, I'm going to be really honest. I was like, I'm a little newscaster over here. I'm going to have my little microphone. I'm going to have my questions that I ask, and I'm going to, just facilitate. But what I really discovered was like, this became me hanging out with you. And that was something that I really look forward to. And that I feel like, you and I get to spend time together while you're going on a walk or you're in the car or you're working. And I just felt like I got to like hang out with like my business girlfriends, if I could put it that way. And so then that became what I actually enjoyed about it, is like pouring into you, sharing insights with you, sharing my experiences of the women in my world with you. And over time, while it was strategic initially, it became so much more than that to me, which I think truthfully fueled why I wanted to pour so much energy into prepping episodes and getting specific guests and things like that. Because yeah, it didn't become a business move anymore. It became like this bigger mission and this deeper why for me very quickly after the first, I would probably say like 10 episodes that we recorded. Another question was, do you remember what you were feeling before you recorded episode 1? Full transparency, I was pooping my pants. Like I was so nervous. I was so nervous. I felt like I said, I felt like I was like a little newscaster, and I was sitting here being like, okay, like I have to make sure that I speak really well and that I look at the camera and that, like my posture is good and that I'm not with the ums and ahs and whatever. And I've talked about this before, but I do feel disappointed in myself that I didn't do the podcast earlier, because if I had, I would have been able to talk to you earlier and I would have been able to spend time with you earlier. And, I would have been able to craft this amazing community of women earlier. And so I kick myself that I didn't do that, because getting messages from you listening to the episode and saying, hey, this landed for me, or like, I'm going to take this quote and go live by it. Or like, I've had people who've messaged me from the episode and said, hey, this episode, had me promote a team member, let go of a team member. I walked away from a relationship because of this episode. And like, I realized I deserve better. Like, I would have never fathomed that that would be possible. But that was all because I just was like, okay, let's do the episode. Let's just go. And before I recorded, I had this big idea that I needed this crazy set and I needed this, really good camera and all this tech. And like, I created so many hurdles when truthfully, that really was just me being super insecure. If I could be really honest about it, it was that I felt if it wasn't professional, if it wasn't dialed in, that people wouldn't respect me, or maybe they wouldn't be wowed by it. I felt like there would be judgment maybe on some level. And so I think I put a lot of hurdles before episode 1. And I had a lot of preconceived idea of what made an effective podcast, what made a helpful podcast. And I actually had somebody who reached out to me the other day, and it literally brought me to tears, because she said, Kate, I just want to say thanks so much for your podcast, because it's literally one of the top 3 podcasts that I listen to. And like for me, when I got that message, I was like, this makes me want to just like run through a wall for you. Like it really did. It put so much fire in me to be like, how can I better help you? How can I better serve you? And so I said to her, what are the things that you found helpful? What do you feel like you want to learn more of? Like just any feedback that you have, like this is a show for you. And I would say from the first episode that I recorded, I would have never imagined that it could have bloomed into such a beautiful connection with so many amazing women. And so I think if I had known then what I know now, I would have started so much earlier because the blessings that it's brought versus the, bottlenecks that I've experienced, there's no comparison. Like it's all been blessing with the podcast. Another question I had was, did I have a fear about starting? And yeah, it was definitely that no one was going to care to listen. Like I was like, how do I make this valuable? And do people care? And even truthfully now I struggle with that a little bit. Like sometimes even this episode, I think to myself, okay, are these questions that are going to be valuable to you? Are you going to care about these answers? Like I always have a little bit of insecurity, I think, in that way. Because my number one metric for my business, for my brand, is that I want people to feel that when they listen to me and when they consume me, that they know that they're home, that they have like a space that is really about them, that they're not feeling that you press an episode of mine, you feel like you're being sold to the entire time. Because I know those podcasts all too well. It's like, here's what I did, and here's what my client this, and here's my program, and here's my framework, and here's my whatever. And I just never wanted the podcast to be that. And so I think one of the things that was my fear starting was that it wouldn't be valuable. And I think to an extent, I still have that fear today, which is that, I always want to make sure that anything that I put out on the podcast, I'm not doing just to check the box that I got an episode out, but that it really is valuable. And so when I first started, the vision for the podcast was the fact that I, as I said, wanted to have, shorter form content. I wanted to have an ability for people to really get to know me. But I think how it's evolved is I realized that women need a space to have the holistic view of them honored. And when I first started, I didn't know if I wanted it to be a business podcast. Did I want it to be like a women's podcast? Like what did I want it to be? And I feel like I really struggled with that because I didn't know. And I think over time, now the vision of it has changed because I realized, yes, obviously, I love to talk strategy. I love a good framework. I love a good structure. But I think that, as time progresses and the more women I meet with, the more women that I coach, the more women I see at like our dinners or our retreats and the deep conversations that we have, I realize like we are so multidimensional. We have so much that impacts our business. And so while I definitely want to lead in the business aspect, our trauma impacts our business. Our physical body and our, hormones impact our business. Our worries about having a family and growing our family, starting a family, and our age and like when is the right time to do that, that impacts the way that we look at our business, how we grow our business. Our relationships impact our business. So when I started to think about I'm going to teach strategy, I felt like it wasn't an honor to us as women and the reality of how much we navigate and how much our lives and the other aspects outside of strategy influence our ability to grow a business. And so, one of the things that I think has changed is initially I wanted it to be a business podcast. And I realized over time that I wasn't actually honoring women in business by only talking about business. Because if I did, it meant that there was a lot of things that they weren't being seen in. And so I found even for myself, when I was a business owner, I would have like one podcast I listened to for strategy. I'd have another one I listened to for personal development, another one that I listened to for like physical health. And I literally sat there. I'm like, what about like the one place where someone feels like at home? They kind of get all the flavors of what they need. And so now to talk to an expert about paid advertising and then talk to someone about, the realities of fertility and then talk to someone else about understanding how to reprogram our subconscious, like all of those are the tools, the conversations, the insights that can be really helpful to us as women. And so I'm just excited to kind of see and expand that vision and see where it can go. There was a question as well, when did you realize that the show is becoming something really real? And I truthfully like getting messages from someone who listens to it or like seeing people share that they're listening to it on their stories initially was like confusing for me. And that's going to sound really weird, but like I sometimes forget that people are listening to this. Like I sometimes forget that you're tuning in every week. And like thank you if you do. For like you OG listeners, you know who you are. Thank you, because I think I just had this belief of like, is anyone going to find this valuable? Is this going to be helpful for people? And so then to see this like, kind of confirmation of like, I put this out into the world and it's being received was so, okay, whoa, like there's something happening here. And having conversations with people about, oh, we should do like a merch line of like ambitious. I was like, whoa, like it really just kind of started to take a life of its own. And I realized that there's a big difference between content and community. That's what I learned is that, you know, I am not like a Mel Robbins exposure at the moment. And the reason I say at the moment is the girl can manifest, okay? But I'm not a Mel Robbins exposure at the moment, but I have like the most diehard community connected to Ambitious and the most amazing women who listen to this and who I connect with every single week. And so because of that, I'm like, this is as real now as I think it ever will be. Because with every message, every share, all of that, it was like, wow, this is something that is not just content for people. This is actually a taste of a catalyst of change in a certain area of their life. And so I thought there's a responsibility that comes with that. And so as a result, that's when I really started to take the podcast a lot more serious. What surprised me, which is the question, what surprised me most about podcasting? Um, I think how vulnerable it is, truthfully. I think it's really easy in podcasting to hide behind a structure or hide behind notes. And you may even have felt this if you've listened to multiple different episodes. You can tell when I'm speaking organically and you can tell when I'm trying to say the right thing. And I've even noticed that about myself, like I audit some of my own episodes. I will watch some of them back to like kind of see as a consumer, how does it feel when I'm on a walk to listen to it? How does it feel when I'm in the car to listen to it? And also when I'm watching it, does it feel stimulating? All of that. So I kind of audit myself at times to see like, how can I improve? And I did notice that about myself, which is that when I speak more organically, it lands more for me listening to it. And so one of the things that surprised me about podcasting is really that like it's a very vulnerable place. Like when you think about the setup of a podcast, I'm here currently as I record this in my basement of my house, in my little studio that I made from purchases off of Amazon. And I sit here and I kind of just open up and share with you each week. And originally again trying to go strategy heavy like business podcast. I really did think that I could just hide behind strategies. And I realized that there was this like feedback loop. The more vulnerable that I was, the more connected I was to what I was talking about, the better it was received. And the more feedback that I got from people. So, like, when I was more authentic, when I shared more, when I was more real, I got more like, this really landed for me. This episode changed everything. Like, this gave me insight on X. And then when I went surface level and when I went, just like steps and things like that and didn't have any of that connection piece, it wasn't as well received in the sense that there wasn't a lot of feedback coming back. So as a result, when you have that loop happen of like the more vulnerable I am, the more real I am, I should say, the more feedback I get, you kind of start to have this pull, this like stretchiness toward being more real, toward being more vulnerable. But truthfully, it's a very exposing feeling. It's a very vulnerable feeling. There's many things that I've shared on this podcast over the various episodes and I've wondered, is that too much or should I have said that or you know uh, should I be, sharing this experience or mentioning the thing that I did? And a surprise for me was also realizing how freeing it is to just be fucking real. Like if I could put it that way, like some of the things that I've shared, like the episode that I shared how I was feeling and like the real ways that I was navigating leaving an engagement, like I don't even think you understand how much making that episode for you and sharing my insights and lessons from that like healed me, and your messages from that episode healed me because it was the first time that I was like, I don't want to have this facade of like, I'm fine and I'm a boss babe and I'm handling it. And I was like, guys, I'm unglued. Like, I just was really honest and I was really transparent. And there was such like a beautiful weight that got lifted off of me when I did that. And I felt so held, so safe, so supported by the amazing women who reached out and were like, hey, like this episode was everything for me. And they shared their experiences in relationships. And it was like this beautiful healing moment as women. But all of that was started from the first kind of ripping of the band-aid, if you will, of me being vulnerable. And so I think what I'm surprised with the podcast is how much it really causes you to open up. There's something almost like a journal in a way. Like when I sit here and I record, I find that I'm really with myself. Like there's no feedback here. So I'm like, does that land for you? I don't know. Like I don't know till weeks, sometimes months later, whether the thing that I said lands for you. So it's difficult because it's like you're sat with yourself. And in the moment when you're recording, it's like journaling. You're just like in your words, in your thoughts, in your feelings. And so I think over time, it kind of cracks you open, if I'm going to be honest, because you start to get more and more comfortable. And with that, you start to want to just be more raw, more transparent, more shares. And it surprised me because I'm not previous to this podcast. And I've gotten messages from you saying the same thing. You're like, I remember your OG, like episode 5 and how you showed up. And then I can see how you show up now. And like, I have had some of you witness and literally watch my growth week to week in the way that I change how I show up. And that's been part of this podcast. It's been part of you. It's been part of your recommendations, your questions, your feedback, and the incredible guests and all of it. So I'm really surprised on how much this podcast has cracked me open, to be honest. Now, if we shift a little bit into more of like the mindset bucket here of like the personal growth, the mindset questions. The first one being, what does ambition mean to you now? I think ambition when I started was I wasn't very in tune with myself when I started this podcast. So because of that, I think ambition to me was like 7 figures and like high cash months and like all this, like, if I could be really candid, like surface level shit. And I think that I hate the word, like the phrase boss babe, but I think that that's kind of indirectly what at the time I was going for. I was kind of like, okay, you know, hit these milestones and like, making sales and marketing and all this stuff. And I remember thinking that that was like, I made it. And I think now I would say ambition is about as women being in the relentless pursuit of our greatness. Because I think the aspect of relentless pursuit is important because I don't like the idea that we're done. I don't like the idea of like I hit a 100K month, boom, I made it. I have a 7-figure business, boom, I made it. And I also, to the aspect of our greatness, I think that I really have come to appreciate the different flavors of greatness that women have. I have a team member who edits this podcast. So she'll know that I'm speaking to her. And it's gonna make me emotional. Seeing her in her greatness, running her business while she was pregnant and super nauseous. I remember being on Zooms with her and her being like super quick while I go throw up. um, and seeing the way that she navigated becoming a mom and the way that she navigates motherhood now in being in business and allowing herself to evolve in her identity and to just achieve so much greatness as a woman, as a partner to her husband, as a mom, like to just like from the moment I met her years ago when, we were at a very different stage for both of us in our life and in our business, to see the person that she's become now and the way that she's just tapped into her full greatness of being an incredible entrepreneur and managing so much. There's so many times I go, I don't know how she's doing it. I don't know how she's doing it. And she just does it with so much grace, and she does it with just like the softness and a smile on her face the entire time. And she just handles it. And I thought, I don't think that the person who makes X amount per year is more great than her. And so I think that the idea of ambition is often like this, we're chasing X and this idea of destination. And I think what I've come to appreciate is like the relentless pursuit. Like she was in constant seeking of discovery of the new version of her, whether conscious or not. And she was evolving and tapping into just like new levels of greatness for her. And, as I said, as a partner, as a mom, as a business owner, as a leader for her business. And when I saw that, when I witnessed her in this evolution, it was really profound for me because it made me realize that, like, as women, we give ourselves boxes of what it means to be ambitious. And especially for women who are moms and who have families, I think many of us discredit the true power in that and the true ability to be a mom and to be a business owner. And I'm not saying that you don't have ambition if you're not a mom. I'm not a mom, but I think I've just realized there's different flavors of ambition. There's different flavors of goals. There's different flavors of achievements. And I think all too often as women, we kind of get given this prescription of what it means to be ambitious. And it means that you're like, in some aspects of business, you're like rocking blazers and you're like at these like crazy photo shoots and all of that. And like, yeah, sure, that's one flavor. You might do stages, you might be like a public speaker and an author and all of that. But like, if you're not doing that, that doesn't mean that you're not ambitious. And I think that for me, ambitious has been that watching her redefine my experience and my witnessing of ambition. And it made me really reevaluate what being ambitious means to me. So I think if I could define it now, and truthfully, I just came up with that in the last 30 seconds, that quote, but it really is. That's what it comes from the heart, truthfully, is just the relentless pursuit of our greatness. And I think the most important aspect of that is what that greatness means to you, and only you know that. And so it's, are you relentlessly pursuing what you define to be your greatness? And that's ambition to me. It's a long-winded answer, but that's the truth. What's a belief about success that you've completely outgrown? That you can't be messy and make progress. Like, I never shared so many things because I thought it made me less legit. I thought it made me less inspiring, less, I don't know, less of a leader, maybe I would put it. Like, I think success for me was always to be perfect, and it was to like have the answers and have it handled and to have, everything squared away. And I realized that success is not about numbers. It's not about perfection. It's not about there never being a problem. It's actually the opposite. It's about honoring the mess and acknowledging the problem and acknowledging the progress and acknowledging the lack of perfection. And I think about it like this, like when you're a leader and you say to someone, trust me, they don't trust you because you tell them to trust you. They trust you because there's moments when things have not been going well and you go, hey guys, I know things are not going well. I want to be honest with you. They're not going the way that I thought it would go. Or I had a plan that this was going to be the outcome. I know that that didn't happen and I'm sorry because I know we put a lot of effort into it. But here's what I'm thinking for next steps to pivot it. Like I realized there was a lot of opportunities that showed me that true success is about being your true self within business. And in every bucket, in your marketing, in sales, with your team, with your clients. And that cracked me open in the last like year and a half, because success to me now is not really about a number. Like there's obviously numbers and targets and goals and milestones that I want to go for just as much as the next person. But I'm like, I'm not going to have my identity tied to this number. I'm going to have it tied to the way that I show up. And for me, that becomes my success metric now, which is my barometer for success is directly linked to my daily, weekly, monthly behavior, not the achievement of the thing. So like if I could give you an analogy, it's not about you if your target is $100,000 a year or $100,000 a month. It's not about like, oh, I hit that. Because if you hit 99,000, you're still an incredible entrepreneur, whether that's per year or per month. It's about how did you show up yesterday and how did you show up last week and how did you show up the last month in your business, in your life, in your relationships. And I think that really, if that's congruent to the kind of person you want to be and the kind of results you want in your life, you are on your way to the results that you're wanting. And whether that achievement, i.e. that North Star, has happened yet is not the defining factor of whether you're successful. It is the pursuit. That's, I think, the main anchor word here is like the pursuit of the success, not the achievement of the yes or no, I did it. And so I think that that's an important factor, because I always tell people, if you show me what you do, I'll tell you your goal. So if I ask someone, show me your schedule, show me how you eat each day, show me, how you move your body, show me how you interact with your partner, that's going to tell me everything I need to know about you. It's going to tell me everything I need to know about your business, everything I need to know about your health, everything I need to know about your relationship, because those are the true indicators of where you're going. If you cancel every date night you've ever had, that's a pretty clear indicator of where we're probably going to end up going as a couple. If I ask you to do something and every single time you've got an excuse and you're inconsistent today, this week, this month, I can pretty much tell you where you're going to end up in business. So I think the behaviors of the now are really the thing that create the success down the road. So success to me is much less now about a destination and a milestone as it is the monitoring of the pursuit and behaviors that we're doing today, this week, this month, in an effort to get there. And I think that that's important because, I had the classic experience that some do, which is the fact that I went for this big target and it felt like I didn't evolve in the process, even though I hit the target. So, like, I did stuff, I made things happen, but I didn't really like evaluate who I was becoming or how I was behaving in the pursuit of that goal. And I really wish that I had done that. What's the biggest mindset shift that you've made in the last 100 episodes? Mm. That's like a stretchy one for me. That to me is I have a couple things that come up. I'm just gonna go from the heart. What is the biggest mindset shift that you've made in the last 100 episodes? I would say my biggest mindset shift is that my problems in my life are my pathway to the progress I desire. I've had a good amount of problems. What I mean by that is like resistances that have happened in the last year and a half, 2 years. And I think my perspective around those problems and resistances has changed greatly. And as a result of that, it's allowed me to make more progress. And I think when I started this podcast, I had a different relationship with problems. I would get frustrated by them. I would be annoyed by them. I'd be stressed out by them. But now I'm like, okay, like what's the pathway of opportunity here? What's the pathway of growth here? What's the pathway for progress for me here? And I think that that was a big aha moment for me because my relationship to problems changed. And as a result, my progress in those areas that I was experiencing the resistance changed. So I would say my relationship and the correlation between problems and my progress was a big shift mindset wise for me. What's been the hardest part of staying true to your voice? I think knowing if it would be liked. I think I've realized in this that I, just as much as the next person, have a desire to be accepted. I have a desire to be liked. I have a desire to say the right thing or make sure it lands. And I've caught myself in moments, wondering if what I really want to say is going to land for someone. And I think for the beginning, like the first 15 episodes, I played it very safe. I was saying like very neutral things, didn't want to be too controversial, didn't want to say anything too spicy because I thought, I don't want to like ruffle any feathers. But then I realized by saying nothing, I'm not doing anything. Like I'm just this like neutral, middle ground, gray area individual. And I think there's an opportunity for all of us when we think about how to honor our voice is like, what's the thing that you're afraid to say or that you haven't said? Or what's the thing you know to be true that you haven't spoken to? What's the thing that you fear if you said it out loud, you'd be disliked? And I challenge myself now on what those are and to speak to those because the thing that creates the most impact is truth. And I think that sometimes truth is uncomfortable for people to receive. So as a result, we're not always the one who's excited to jump to say it. But over time, I've realized my voice has gotten stronger because the more that I speak truth for me, and kind of release the idea of what that looks like or how that's received, the more authentic I am, the more real I am. And so the more I can kind of, fall asleep at night and be okay with myself. When I feel like something was not spoken or I feel like something was not said, I feel out of alignment all day because I realize that like this is stuck in me. I need to share this. I need to say this. And again, once I do, it's really the only time that I'm actually showing up as me. So I think to stay true to your voice is also part of tuning out the noise. I think one of the best things I learned is like the reason you can't hear what's true for you is because you're being drowned out by all this other noise. I don't really consume online. I don't really get stuck in these chambers of noise. And that's because if I do, it's a slippery slope for me. If I feel like I have so and so in my ear and then I listen to, someone else's video that shows up and that person's now in my mind, that does cloud my ability to say, what do I think? And I've noticed recently that when I remove the stimuli from my environment, I'm so clear on who I am and what I want. The only thing that clouds who I am, what do I want, what do I believe, is this really aggressive or loud or intense or consistent outside stimuli. And so I noticed that when I struggled to have my voice or to know my voice, it often came from the fact that I just had too much of that. So anytime I isolated and got silent, I started to get clear. So I think that that's also something that I would just recommend to you if you feel that you sometimes struggle to know who you are or to show up the way that you want to or to say the thing that you know to be true. There could be an invitation for you to start to have some more silence, some more space to sit with yourself so you can turn up that volume of you as a result of turning down the volume of others. How do you keep showing up when motivation dips? Well, first I realized that I'm not going to be motivated. So I recognize that there's many times, many times that I do not want to do a podcast. There's like in the moment, I'm like, I don't want to record this. I don't feel like it. I don't feel like talking. I don't feel like, doing my hair. Like I don't feel like doing this right now. But when I start to press record and I start talking, every single time I feel like, let's go. Like I feel excited to record. I feel excited to share. So I think part of it is like sometimes we kind of create this like what I consider to be catastrophizing. Like we make things up to be so difficult, so intense, so overwhelming in our head. And then when you go to do them, you go, oh, okay, that wasn't that bad. So I think there's that portion, which I recognize that like my brain is doing mental gymnastics before I actually press go. So to be cognizant of that, I think truthfully, a thing that does help me as well is realizing that this is also not just about me. When I got a message from someone that says, I literally wait for every Thursday the episode to come out, I literally have had moments where I had a moment of weakness and I was like, well, if we skip an episode, it's not a big deal. But then I think about like, Sarah who listens and is like, where's the episode this week? Right. And just kind of feeling like I let somebody down. And I realized that I don't want to ever feel like this is about me. And I think that every time that I'm like, I don't feel like doing like this and I don't feel like that, it's like, this is not about me. And so I think there's many instances in our life that that's the case, right? That you want to ask yourself, what is it really about when you're not motivated? And when I'm not motivated for something, when I anchor into the actual why of why I'm doing the thing that I don't want to do, it helps me to get moving. Because when I make it about the small little thing in front of me, like this is not about, oh, I don't feel like recording today. This is about you not recording is you showing yourself that you can't push through how you feel. It's you giving yourself evidence that you're not consistent. It's the ability to have what you made as a promise to someone else that you're not fulfilling. Like there's depth to I don't want to. So I then tell myself, if I'm going to say I'm going to skip a week, I have to be fully committed to accepting all of those truths alongside the truth of I don't want to record. And when I have that conversation with myself, I never don't record. And that's because, again, there's a deeper why, there's a deeper connection there. Okay. Section 3, behind the mic. What has been your favorite episode to record and why? I think I mentioned it earlier, but I think that there was a couple episodes that were more relationship driven, mindset driven. That was like the first time that I was really actually vulnerable. And I would literally remember messaging some of the team members being like, I don't know about this episode. Please let me know what you think. Please let me know if this lands for you. Cause I was so scared. I was so scared. Full transparency. I was freaking out because I should reuse my wording here, NLP language. In the past, I wasn't great with vulnerability. And so when I'd be vulnerable, it would make me very uncomfortable. But then again, when you get that feedback that it resonates with people, you start to realize, okay, wow, like there actually is a value in this share. It's not just about sharing it to share it, to like dump on people. It's to help people. And so I think that the episode being able to talk about some of those vulnerable things, to be able to share some of the stuff that I've gone through, to be able to speak to how it impacted me as a business owner, it kind of was like this like band-aid, this like ripping of a band-aid of creating relief, because it showed me that like, oh, I can breathe. I don't feel like I have to show up as this person that I'm not right now, or to show up, oh, I feel great when I don't feel great. Like, I think that was it was such an aspect of relief for me because it allowed me to just truly deeply be authentic. And it was a really powerful shift in me, in my life, not even just in the show. What episode stretched you the most as a host? I wouldn't actually say that there is an episode that has stretched me because I feel like if something is stretchy, I typically will like kind of like combat the guest kind of thing. The truthful answer is I wouldn't say that there's something that has stretched me as a host. Which episode completely changed the way that you think? I truthfully would say the episode that I did with George, which I highly recommend that everybody go listen to. I think it's a really valuable conversation that I actually want to do a part 2 of at some point. We had a masculine feminine discussion about masculine and feminine energy. And I think that that really solidified. I wouldn't say it changed the way I think because I was already kind of starting to see some momentum in that shift of thinking. But I think that that episode really solidified for me the understanding of like the true depth of how masculine and feminine energy impact women in business, because I think sometimes we don't give maybe like enough credit to one or the other. So like if you're super in your feminine, you're always in flow and like you're kind of anti-structure, you don't love strategy, being too far on that side is really detrimental to your business, as well as being too far in the side of like in your masculine. We really need that duality. And I think that that conversation and where that went was really impactful because that was something that I think was kind of reflecting my own growth back to me at that time. But it also was something that I think solidified my beliefs around, okay, this is the way that I do want to do business with this kind of duality of both these energies at the same time. What was your biggest podcast fail? So I did have an episode actually with somebody that I was really excited to interview. And it was a naturopath episode. And anyway, we had a great time. And then I go into the footage and realize that her microphone was like not like I could hear her when I was recording, but it was just like not connected afterwards when we got the episode. And so the entire episode was a wash. And so I think that that was unfortunate. That really sucked. And I think there's obviously been like small things along the way. Like there's, times where I've been like I had like false lashes or something on and it was like falling off and like flailing in the wind the entire episode. And so I'm like, well, what you gonna do? We just got a 3, 2, 1, put it out anyway. It's progress over perfection. So there's definitely been some stuff along the way. Maybe you haven't noticed, but like I definitely noticed like I had something on my face, right? Something in my teeth or my eyelash was falling off or whatever. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm just like 3, 2, 1, put it out and we'll keep attention to that for next time. What's something no one sees about the podcast process? I think 2 sides. I think the prep and the post-production. I think the prep is not like I don't just sit here typically. This is a structure obviously for today's episode, but most episodes, like I am researching what topics would be most helpful for you. I am crafting notes, pulling information, making frameworks, stats, helping you to really anchor into what we're talking about. So I think that there's a lot of prep typically of 1 to 2 hours that can go into a given episode even before pressing record. Usually the episode itself is also an hour. And then, yeah, the post-production, I full transparency, we have an amazing team that helps to take this episode from the moment I press, stop recording and get this out to people, whether it's to edit the episode, chop it into clips, show notes, captions, social media, stats, analytics, like all of that. Like there's such an incredible team that makes this post-production go out. And so I think that it can be really easy to see that on social or to see that and be like, oh, like, cool, I want to have a podcast. But, podcasts, I would not have this podcast if I had to do it on my own. Full transparency. What the reality was in my business when I added this, in the sense of the experience of, how busy I was and all of that, to think about, drafting the episodes, getting the guests, recording, prepping, post-production, like posting it all. Like it just, yeah, it really is something that truly is possible and is going as well as it is because of the amazing people that we have behind the screen that are also making it happen. Have you ever wanted to quit and what made you stay? Mm-hmm. I have wanted to quit actually. There's definitely been times where I've thought about quitting the podcast. Not my best times, tell you that. Typically moments where I'm super, super stressed out and I think about like my schedule's really busy or I'm navigating something personally. And then I think about, oh, I need an episode for this week. And I'm like, ugh. And I feel stretched in those moments. But when you have a podcast, this is not a short-term play, which basically means that the growth, the exposure, the, community, all of the amazing things that come with a podcast are not going to happen in your first 20 episodes. They're not going to happen in your first 50 episodes. They're not going to happen in your first, sometimes even 100 episodes. I think it was a Diary of a CEO post recently that it took him multiple years before his podcast actually started to take off. And so I think one of the things I recognize when I feel like quitting is that I am quitting before it could be great. And I'm not willing to do that. So I think to myself, what if the difference of this podcast being everything you want it to be is in the next 10 episodes or in the next 5 episodes or in the next single episode? What if the difference of this episode and guest is the difference of this podcast being everything you dreamed it to be? And are you really willing to, because of this week or the overwhelm you're feeling or the tiredness you're having or whatever, really ready to throw that down the drain in this moment? Like, are you really truly stepping into and confident to say yes to that? And I realized I'm just not. So every time that I have these moments of weakness where I want to give up or when I want to, just say it's not convenient for me this week, it's not because I don't want the podcast. It has nothing to do with that. I think it's typically centered around the fact that I feel like in the moment I don't have a lot of capacity. And so, because the podcast is not for most businesses like an instant ROI or like an instant, like we post this, we get 8 leads kind of thing. There's a lot of lack of dopamine associated with it. So like when you go to create it, you're not getting an instant feedback loop of like, oh, sales, money, revenue, right? Like there's an aspect of podcasts for sure that is an aspect of investment. It's kind of like if you think about building your investment portfolio. When you invest, you're not trying to invest in the stock market to take out all your stocks 3 months later. You're investing so that 30 years down the road, you have a portfolio that's really helpful for you. Well, the same thing is true with podcasting. It is a investment into yourself, into your brand, into your community, into your people, and you're not going to see the dopamine of it. And you're not going to see these big quick wins from it the way that you would with other typical marketing channels. But that doesn't mean that it's a reason to not do it. Because as I said, if you think about some of the biggest podcasts, like Diary of a CEO, his podcast is massive now. It has 17 million monthly listeners. Well, that happened because he didn't quit. So the same thing is kind of my perspective when it comes to my show. It's not easy. And because that, again, you're consistent without the dopamine. So I think that for anybody who has a podcast who's able to do that, I really deeply respect that because it's not an easy thing to do, but it impacts so many people. How do you prep or ground yourself before recording? I realize every episode I kind of start, like not intentionally, it's not like something I created in like a Google Doc, but I kind of start every episode with like, it's about them. It's about them. It's about them. It's about them. And I do that because I think that there's a tendency oftentimes in marketing for marketing. What I mean by marketing is really any platform where you're talking to people for your brand. It can be a really easy thing to make it very selfish, to have everything that you start to talk about be like, look at me and more about me. And here's a story about me. And here's like me, 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 me. And I don't know that that really helps anybody. Like, I think that stories can be impactful. I think that stories can be supportive, but I never wanted this to be like the Kate Perkovic show. Like, that was never my goal with it, which is why I also, by the way, did not name it the Kate Perkovic show because I didn't want it to be about me. It wasn't actually about me. It was about like being a channel, a, middleman to bring value to the person who needed it. I ground myself typically in each episode by remembering like it's about them, it's about it being valuable. And anytime that I feel like I'm getting too much involved into talking about me, I typically recenter because I sometimes will use stories of me to help anchor in a thought, but I never want that to be the basis of the majority of an episode by any means. Okay, so let's go into community. What is something you want people to feel after listening to an episode? I would say the natural answer that's honest for me right now is to feel served. I would want people to feel that that was something that they walked away with an aspect of clarity, that they walked away with an insight, they walked away with a framework, they walked away with education, they walked away with a perspective shift. I would always want anyone who presses play on any episode to feel served in some capacity. And I think for me, if that feeling I knew was consistent for most listeners, that to me is like defined success of this show. How has your audience evolved alongside you? Ooh, I have seen growth in you, actually, because I do talk to many of you each week. I get incredible messages. So I want to thank you, by the way, for anyone who reaches out after any episode. Some people will reach out, this episode landed for me, love this episode, played this episode today. So I get feedback on that. But I think ultimately, what I've noticed is that a lot of the women who listen to Ambitious are very driven. They are women that are navigating a lot. So you may have a lot of hats that you wear. You may have had a lot of trauma that's happened to you in the last year, 2 years. You may have experienced some trials and some things that were really painful. You could be relationship. We've had women who are in the process of divorce, who've become divorced. We've had women who have become, first-time moms. We've also had people who have gone through multiple rounds of IVF, and we've had women who have experienced miscarriages, people who have had partners who've lost their jobs, some of which who've lost their homes due to different circumstances. And there's just been a lot of heaviness that people have had to handle. And one of the things that I have watched of the people that have reached out to me is the grace for their next step after. So I think many of us have felt a shift in business. Things have changed this year. You are still trying to grow your business, but you're also wearing all these hats. All these things are happening at the same time. And you go, man, I am just feeling like capped, feeling at my top of capacity here. What I've noticed is that I think a lot more women are waking up. And I think a lot of them that listen to the show, maybe in yourself included, are having this awareness of like, I'm incredible. I am so strong. I am seeing people noticing that like I deserve a break. I deserve grace. I deserve support. I deserve a moment for myself. I'm seeing women take their power back from not letting the outside influences tell them what ambition is or tell them what goals are or tell them what achievement is. I'm seeing women demand more integrity and more honesty and to know what their truth is and to ask that truth of those around them, whether that's in a business setting or in a relationship or any of that. And I think more than ever, I see that women desire what is next for them in the sense of that many women who listen to Ambitious they're not settlers. They're not people who are like yourself, maybe looking to be like, I'm done. And this is not from a place of ego. It's from a place of you have this pursuit and this desire to unlock this next version of you and this next version of your life and the next reality. And there's also kind of alongside that, this theme of like reinvention, that you're open to reinventing yourself for whatever is meant to be for this next chapter of your life. And so it's been really exciting to see. Yeah, it really goes back to, again, the definition of ambition, which is the relentless pursuit of your greatness. And I think that definition is something I witness in women the more that they listen to this show. And it's not because of me. I want to make that very clear. We have incredible guests who give insight, and there's, even stories we tell that help you to find something in yourself. And I think one of the best things I learned in coaching is that coaching is not telling someone who they are, it's helping them to discover who they were to begin with. And that is really how I think about what we talk about here. I don't feel that I'm the reason for your growth. I think what I do is I act as a mirror. And so my job is to hold this mirror and say, do you see her? Like, do you see how great she is? Do you see what she's possible of? Do you see what she's experienced? Do you see how in pain she is? Do you see how incredible she is? Like, my job is to be a mirror for you. And so the growth you have is not because of me. The growth you have is because I'm holding the mirror and I'm just the source of where the mirror comes from. There's other mirrors you could go to. There's other podcasts you could go to. There's other coaching you could go to. You might even have people in your life who are a mirror for you. But this show, if you've felt that your life or something has changed or you've gotten an insight from it, is not because of what I tell you or a guest tells you. It's because the guests we have or the things I share are acting as a mirror. And so what I've noticed is the more women who look in the mirror, the more they grow, which is like the women who are like, I took this and I integrated it, and I took this and I integrated it. And like I did this in my relationship and I did this within my health. When we start to have that mirror more consistent in front of you, you're seeing more of yourself in little bits and pieces every single time you tune in. And so that's really how I think about what I'm doing, and also what I'm seeing with people who listen is that they are taking a more conscious look, a more intentional effort to look in the mirror and say, what do I need to see within myself, to honor in myself, to overcome within myself for that, again, next level of my greatness in the pursuit of achieving my greatness. What does it mean to you to create a space for ambitious women? The only answer I can say to that is everything, because I always felt I had to choose. That's how I would say it. I always felt like I had to choose. I had to choose to learn strategy, or I had to choose to be in my feminine, or I had to choose to, have this person to talk to me about relationships. And kind of like I talked about earlier, like I just want there to be a room where all of it is welcome. And I think for me, it's so deeply aligned and so deep within my purpose to have that space for us to have all of those conversations. Nothing is off the table. And I think that that's important for us as women, that we don't feel like we have to compartmentalize, that we get to be whole in this space. And so for me, it means everything. It's an honor to have someone listen. It's an honor to have someone download a show. It's an honor to have you share this with someone that you know. Like, that's, to me, it fills my bucket in a way that I cannot even describe, because it really is just it's such a massive, massive compliment and a massive responsibility to me to have this space. So I do take it very intentionally. And the only thing I can say is it means everything. It means everything to me. Okay. Last section here. What is a piece of advice that you no longer agree with? Mm. I think something I believed originally is that the experience of your pain must match the experience of your healing. And I don't agree with that. I don't think that the resistance you feel in business has to match the intensity of how much it's going to take you to come back from this. I don't think that the pain of a relationship ending or not working out has to be correlated to like, this grind I'm going to have to heal. I don't think the resistance you experience must match the healing of that resistance. So I think that that's something that I associated, like the depth of the problem is going to match the depth of overcoming it, which are not two things that I correlate to be true anymore. So I think that that's something that I would say I don't agree with. What's been the boldest and most uncomfortable decision so far? Ugh, that's stretchy for me. Um, I would say reinventing myself a year and a half, 2 years ago. Just makes me want to take a deep breath, because to reinvent yourself is to have faith in the next version of possibility without any proof that that's possible just yet. And when I left my engagement and my 8-year relationship and started over, never lived alone for the first time. I was alone, I was healing, I was trying to navigate business, and like I was doing a lot of personal development. So my identity was changing, my relationship has changed, my living experience had changed. I had, my 2 dogs now that I had to handle on my own. And I was just like, oh, like I just felt stretched. Everything around me, I felt like the walls were caving in. And I had nothing to anchor into of like, what is this new life going to look like? Like I had no clarity of here's how it's going to all come together, right? Like it was just, yeah, I had just the feeling of my possibility for myself and what I could see for my potential. And I think the hardest decision for many women is to move and take action in the pursuit, again, of your greatness, or the pursuit of what's possible for you, without really knowing all the steps. Like I said to my therapist when everything happened, I feel like if you think about like a stone pathway into a forest, I feel like I've got 2 stones that I can see. The rest is covered by fog. I know that there are quote unquote stones there. Where they are? Don't know. How far are they spaced between them? Don't know. Is there stuff covering them like ice and, rocks? Don't know. Like there was so many unknown things, and it was so like physically, emotionally, mentally terrifying. And I had someone close to me this year or in the last year who left a relationship, and watching her basically right after me navigate a similar situation of stepping into her possibility and potential without having it all figured out yet, and watching her do it, and again with so much grace, it really showed me that I think one of the hardest decisions that we can do as women and as entrepreneurs is to take a step in something when we don't have the pieces. And many of us did this when we started to create our businesses, right? Like we started the business, we had no idea where it was going to go. I had no idea that I'd be sitting here recording this, talking to you, and that I would have a multiple seven-figure business and all this stuff. I had never visioned any of this. But obviously, here we are. And so I think one of the things that's been really beautiful is just to see people take action without the plan in front of them. And for me, that was the most bold thing to do. And I would have never, I don't know where I got the strength to do that, where I got the clarity, the conviction to do that. Couldn't tell you. But it was so uncomfortable, like so uncomfortable. And that is because it caused me to only have faith in, you know, truthfully for myself, me or God. Like it really was, I'm with me. It's just me. And I have to have faith that like I'm going to be good. And it doesn't matter what bucket that's in. It doesn't have to be relationships, but I think there's a massive boldness that comes with that. There's a lot of discomfort that comes with that. And when you only have you to rely on, it can be powerful, but it also can be terrifying because you just don't know what's going to happen. So I think that that's what I would say to that. What do you want for Ambitious in the 100 episodes from now? So this will be a cool clip to come back to. um, I hope that 100 episodes from now, I am even more evolved as a person that I am now for you, so that I can have a new level of awareness as the delivery mechanism of information to bring you even more insight and value and takeaways. I hope that I become a better facilitator, I would say is one thing. Two, my deepest hope is to grow this community, and not from a just numbers perspective, but from a allowing women who feel lost to feel like they found a place to be would be my number one desire in that bucket. And I think more than anything, my goal would be 100 episodes from now that you grow alongside me. Because I think that my hope would be that if you've listened to 200 episodes or something within that, that you also 100 episodes from now have become somebody different, and that you have a different level of awareness. You have a different level of insight that allows you to step into a version of yourself that you're not right now. And so I would also hope that the tools we provide can help you to unlock some aspect of your ambition in the process as well. And the last question is, if your audience remembers one message from Ambitious, what do you hope it is? It sounds silly, but I end every episode with, as always, stay ambitious. And I think, it was like kind of like a catchy, I would say, marketing line that we had originally. But now when I think about it, I see it as like a way of living. Stay ambitious. Stay is different than become, because the goal of the word stay is that you already are there. So you already have achieved ambition. And it basically is, when I say that, my intention around it is to remain within ambition. So if we go back to what our definition was today, ambition is defined in what I mean by it when I say ambitious or ambition, to me is defined by the endless pursuit of your greatness. So if I was to break that down, my hope for you with Ambitious is that you always stay in the relentless pursuit of your greatness. And I think it's an easy reminder because there's times where we get knocked off of that. There's times where we feel like we don't have it to be in the pursuit of greatness today, or that we feel like we're done, we've achieved this, like checked the box, right? So the stay, as I see it, is to be anchored into that relentless pursuit of your greatness, and to have it as a way of being, have it as a way of living, have it as an identity for yourself. It's not something you do, it's something that you are. Okay. So you are always in relentless pursuit of your greatness as a person. It's not like this week I'm going to pursue my greatness. It's like it's an identity. And I think that for me, what I'd want you to take away from ambitious is ambitious or ambition is not something you do, it's something you are. It's something that your identity is. It's in your being. So I would ask to look at, where am I trying to do ambition versus how can I be ambition? And that's again because doing is associated with completion. Being is a state of reinvention. It's a state of being. It's a state that you bring to each thing that you touch, which is why it impacts you as a mom, you as a partner, you as a friend, you as, in your health, in your own personal development, in your business, with your team, with your clients. Like, it's this constant thing. And that's because it's something you carry. It's something that you're bringing into every situation in front of you. And so if I could leave you with anything, it is to remember that it is a state of being and it is not something that you do. So, 100 episodes, that's kind of crazy. It's a big milestone, and I'm very excited for when we do a 2.0 of this episode at 200 episodes and 300 episodes and 400 episodes. And I just want to say, more than anything, to close off today, a massive thank you. There are a lot of podcasts on the internet that you could listen to. There's a lot of shows that you could tune into. And to have those of you who tune into this every single week, to listen to myself, to the guests, to, take the time out of your day to shoot us messages, to share your insights and your feedback, I want you to know that every single one of you, and if you are listening to this, are appreciated. And so I just want to say thank you, because none of what we're doing would be possible without you. None of what we will do one day is possible without you. And so I just want to say a massive thank you more than anything. And with that being said, we will see you on the next episode. And as always, stay ambitious. Thank you.